out as one of his best known and greatest works. The play was written in 1879, so we're talking about a play that's almost 150 years old. Ibsen wrote 27 plays over the course of a 50-year career. He had already been writing for 30 years when he wrote A Doll's House, so by this time he knew what he was doing. We, over the past 6 weeks, have been tackling an Ibsen play reading series, thanks to a generous grant from the Wisconsin Humanities Council. And each week we've been reading one of Ibsen's greatest works. It will conclude this Sunday at 1 o'clock at the Historical Museum with a reading of Hedda Gabler. And you're invited to attend. That is free and open to the public, and we love having people come to listen to the plays. So, A Doll's House, 1879. It was written at the beginning of what was Henrik Ibsen's most productive, most important decade as a playwright. He continued to write for another 20 years after he wrote this play, but the plays he wrote between 1879 and 1891 are his best known works. As we've been exploring his plays, we have discovered why he is called the father of modern drama, the father of realism. He was in the vanguard of his time with so many different aspects of his playwriting career, and he was always trying new challenges. He took on issues of social importance. He, in fact, took on topics that were considered controversial, scandalous, taboo. Some of his plays were even banned during his lifetime. And you still can see some of his works being criticized in the press in more repressive parts of the world today. He wrote the majority of his plays while he was living abroad. He left Norway and moved to Italy and Germany, and he wrote most of his plays while he was there, but they were all set in Norway, in the Norway that he had left behind. Now, over the course of his playwriting career, he wrote historical plays, he wrote poetic dramas, he wrote epic plays, he wrote problem plays, that is to say, plays that took on issues and problems of the day, of his day, and problems and issues which we are still talking about and facing even today. He wrote realistic plays, he wrote plays in the style of symbolism, and he wrote psychological plays. And in almost each of these styles, he was the first or one of the first to be doing this. Tonight, you were listening just before I interrupted the music to a piece called Norwegian Rhapsody, and you'll be hearing a number of pieces of music that were composed contemporaneously with Ibsen. Coming up next will be a piece called Crescendo by Per Larsen. And later on, you'll be hearing a piece by Edvard Grieg, who was a friend of Ibsen's, and who in fact wrote a very famous piece for one of Ibsen's earlier plays called the Peer Gynt Suite. So this piece of music lasts about 2 or 3 minutes, so you can continue your conversations, but we would like to say after the play, please, if you feel like it, stick around and say hello to the cast and talk to them. We've been talking about Ibsen a lot and about how important his plays still are, the issues that he's talking about still are to this day. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this play and about the issues it addresses. And with that, I want to say thank you for coming to see one of the great classics of world theater here on the stage of Wisconsin Rapids Community Theater.
hide the Christmas tree carefully, Helene. The children mustn't see until this evening when it's all decorated. How much?
50, ma'am.
There. Oh, no, keep the change.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, he's home.
Is that my little lark twittering out there?
Yes, it is.
Is that my little squirrel bustling about?
Yes.
And when did my squirrel get home?
Just this minute. Oh, Torvald, do come here. I want to show you everything I bought.
Now don't disturb me. Did you say bought? That? All that? Has my little spendthrift been flinging money about again?
Oh, come, Torvald. Surely we ought to let ourselves go a little bit. After all, this is the first year we haven't had to be careful.
But that doesn't mean we can afford to squander money.
Well, we can afford to squander a little bit, can't we? Just a tiny, tiny bit. You're going to make a big salary and you'll have lots and lots of money.
After the first of the year, yes. But we must remember it will be 3 full months before my salary falls due.
Well, we can just borrow in the meantime.
Nora, there's my little feather brain. Now let's do suppose I borrowed 1,000 crowns today. Well, you'd probably squander it all during Christmas week. And then let's suppose on New Year's Eve a tile blows off the roof and knocks my brains out.
Oh, don't say such frightful things.
But do let's suppose, then what?
Well, if something as horrible as that had happened, I shouldn't care whether I owed money or not.
But what about the people I borrowed from?
Well, who cares about them? After all, they're just strangers.
Nora, what a little woman you are. But seriously, Nora, you know my feelings about such things. I'll have no borrowing, I'll have no debts. There can be no freedom, no nor beauty either in a home built on loans and credit. Now we've held out bravely this long, and we shall continue to do so for the short time that remains.
Just as you like, Torvald.
Now, the little lark mustn't droop her wings. Don't tell me my little squirrel is sulking. Nora, guess what I have here?
Money.
There you are. Now, don't you think I know a little money is needed at Christmas time?
10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, thank you, Torvald. This will last me a long time.
Better see that it does.
Oh, it will. I know. But do come here. I want to show you everything I've bought. And also cheap, too. Oh, here is a sword for Ivar and some new clothes. And there's a trumpet and horse for Bob. Oh, and here's a little doll and a doll's bed for Emmy. They're not worth much, but she's sure to rip into pieces in a minute anyway. Oh, and here's some dress material and handkerchiefs for the maids. Oh, old Anne-Marie really should have had something better.
And what's in this parcel here?
Oh, no, Torvald. You can't look at that until this evening.
Oh, I can't, eh? Well, what about you, you little squanderer? Haven't you thought of anything for yourself?
Oh, there's nothing I want, Torvald.
Of course there is. Now tell me something sensible you'd really like to have.
But really, there's nothing. Unless, of course,
Well,
well, if you really wanted to give me something, you might.
Well, out with it.
You might give me some money, Torvald, just anything you feel you could spare. And then one of these days I'll buy myself something with it.
But Nora,
Torvald, please. I'll wrap it in gold paper and hang it from the Christmas tree. Don't you think that would be fun?
now what's the name of the little bird that eats up money?
The spendthrift bird, I know, but do let's do as I say, Torvald. Please, I beg you. If you just give me a little money, then one of these days I'll buy something very sensible with it. Don't you think that's a good idea? Well, don't you?
Sensible enough, I suppose, provided you really do buy something for yourself with it. But I imagine you'll just fritter it away on some unnecessary household expenses, and before I know it, you'll be coming to me for more.
But Torvald...
You mustn't deny it, Nora. The spendthrift is a sweet little bird, but it costs a man an awful lot of money to support one.
How can you say such nasty things to me? I save all I can.
Yes, I dare say, but it doesn't amount to much.
You don't know, Torvald, what expenses we larks and squirrels have.
You are a curious little creature. Exactly like your father, you'll go to any means to get a sum of money, and as soon as you have it, it slips through your fingers. You yourself don't know what's become of it. But I suppose I must just take you as you are. It's in your blood. Yes, such things are hereditary, Nora.
I only wish I had inherited a lot of father's qualities.
Oh, and I wouldn't wish you any different than you already are. But Nora, it has just occurred to me, isn't there something, how shall I call it, a little guilty about you this morning?
About me? Whatever gave you that idea?
Yes. Now, look straight into my eyes.
Well?
Has my little sweet tooth been breaking the rules today?
No, Torvald, why would you say
No,
that?
the little sweet tooth did stop in at the confectioner's.
No, really not.
Oh, she didn't nibble a little candy.
No, Torvald, I assure you.
Not even a macaroon or two.
No, Torvald, really not. I assure you.
Now there, I'm only joking.
It would never occur to me to go against your wishes.
Of course, I know that. Besides, you've given me your word. Well, my darling, I won't pry into your Christmas secrets. They'll be unveiled tonight.
Did you remember to ask Dr. Rennick?
Oh, no, it really isn't necessary. He'll take it for granted he's to dine with us this evening. However, I will ask him when he stops by this morning. I've ordered some especially good wine, Nora. I am so looking forward to this evening.
Yes, so am I. And the children will have such fun.
Oh, what a secure feeling. To look forward to a new position and an ample income. It really is a wonderful prospect, isn't it, Nora?
It's simply marvelous.
You remember last Christmas? Why, every evening you locked yourself away until past midnight making paper flowers for the Christmas tree and all sorts of other wonderful things you wished to surprise us with. I was never so bored in all my life.
I wasn't a bit bored.
But it all came to a rather sad end, didn't it?
Oh, do you have to tease me about that again? How can I help the cat coming in and tearing it all to pieces?
Of course you couldn't help it, my poor darling. You only wish to show us a good time, that's the main thing. But it is good to know that those lean times are over.
It's wonderful.
Now I don't have to sit here all alone, boring myself to death. And you don't have to strain your dear little eyes or prick your sweet little fingers.
No, I don't, do I? Oh, how lovely it all is. But I want to talk to you about how I thought we'd arrange things after Christmas. Oh, there's a bell. It must be a visitor. How tiresome.
I don't wish to see anyone. Remember that, Nora.
There's a lady here to see you, ma'am.
Well, show her in.
And the doctor's here too, sir.
Oh, did he go straight to my study?
Yes, he did, sir. How do you do, Nora?
How do you do?
You don't recognize me, do you?
No, I don't think. And yet. Christine, is it really you?
Yes, it's really I.
Oh, Christine, imagine my not knowing you. But you've changed so.
Yes, I suppose I have. After all, it's 9 or 10 years.
Is it that long since we met? Yes, I suppose it is. Oh, Christine, these last 8 years have been such happy ones. And fancy your being in town. And you made that long trip in midwinter. How brave you are.
I arrived by the morning boat.
You're here for the Christmas holidays. What fun. We'll have such a good time. Oh, do take off your things. There we go. You're not cold, are you? There. Now we can sit here by the fire. Oh, no. You sit in the armchair and I'll sit here on the stool. There. Now you look more like yourself again. It was just before you were, well, you're a little bit paler, Christine. And perhaps a bit thinner.
And much, much older, Nora.
Well, maybe a little bit older. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Not much, though. Oh, but what a thoughtless wretch I am, chattering away like that. Do forgive me.
What for, Nora, dear?
You lost your husband, didn't you, Christine? You're a widow.
Yes. My husband died 3 years ago.
Yes, I know. I read it in the paper. Oh, I did mean to write to you, Christine, but I kept putting it off, and all sorts of things kept coming in the way.
I understand, dear
No,
Nora.
it was beastly of me. And how dreadful for you. And he died without leaving you anything, didn't he?
Yes.
And you have no children?
No.
Nothing, then.
Nothing. Not even grief. Not even regret.
Oh, but how is that possible, Christine?
It sometimes happens, Nora.
Just imagine being so utterly alone. And it must be so dreadful for you. I have 3 of the loveliest children. I can't show them to you just now. They're out with their nurse. But I want you to tell me all about yourself.
No, Nora. I'd rather hear about you.
No, I want you to start. I am not going to be selfish today. I'm going to think only of you. Oh, but there is one thing I must tell you. You haven't heard about the wonderful thing that's just happened to us, have you?
No, what is it?
My husband's just been elected president of the Joint Stock Bank.
Oh, Nora, how splendid.
Yes, isn't it? You see, a lawyer's position is so uncertain, especially if he refuses to take any cases which are in the least bit shady. And Torvald is so particular about such things. And I agree with him, of course. You can imagine how glad we are. He's to start at the bank just after the new year. He'll be making a big salary and all sorts of percentages. Everything will be quite different from then on. We'll be able to have everything we want. Imagine, Christine. Won't it be wonderful to have lots and lots of money and nothing to worry about?
It certainly would be wonderful to have enough for one's needs.
Oh, not just enough for one's needs, Christine, but heaps and heaps of money.
Nora, I see you haven't grown up yet. I remember at school you were a frightful spendthrift.
Yes, that's what Torvald says. But I haven't had much of a chance to be a spendthrift. We've had to work hard, both of us.
You too?
Oh, yes. I took all sorts of little jobs, embroidery and needlework and crochet and that sort of thing, and other things as well. I suppose you know that Torvald left the government service just after we were married. There wasn't much room for promotion in his department, and of course he had to earn more money when he had me to support. That first year, he overworked himself terribly. He took all sorts of odd jobs and worked from morning until night. He couldn't stand it. His health gave way, and he became deathly ill. The doctor said we absolutely must take some time and live in the south.
Oh, yes. I heard you spent a whole year in Italy.
Yes, we did. It was dreadfully hard to arrange, I can tell you. It was just after Ivar's birth, but we had to go. It was a wonderful trip, and it saved Torvald's life. But it cost a fearful lot of money, Christine.
Yes, it must have.
$1,200, 4,800 crowns. That's a lot of money, you know?
You were lucky to have it.
Well, you see, we got it from Father.
Oh, I see. And wasn't it just about that time that your father died?
Yes, it was, Christine. Just think. I wasn't able to go to him. I wasn't there to nurse him. I was expecting Ivar at the time, and then I had my poor sick Torvald to look after. Dear darling Papa. I never saw him again, Christine. It's the hardest thing I've had to go through since my marriage.
I know you were awfully fond of him. And after that, you left for Italy?
Yes, we had the money then, you see. And the doctor said we must waste no time, so we started out a month later.
And your husband came back completely cured?
Strong as an ox.
But what about the doctor then?
How do you mean?
Didn't the maid say something about a doctor just as I arrived?
Oh, yes, Dr. Rank. No, he's Torvald's best friend. It's not a professional call. He comes to see us every day. No, Torvald hasn't had a moment's illness since. And the children are strong and well. And so am I. Oh, Christine, Christine. How wonderful it is to be alive and happy. Oh, but how disgraceful of me. Here I am talking about nothing but myself. Don't be cross with me. Is it true, Christine, that you didn't love your husband? Why did you marry him then?
Well, you see, Mother was alive then. She was bedridden and completely helpless. And I had my 2 younger brothers to take care of. I didn't think it would be right to refuse him.
No, I suppose not. I suppose he had money then?
Yes, I believe he was quite well off, but his business was precarious, Nora, and when he died, it all went to pieces and there was nothing left.
And then?
And then I had to struggle along as best I could. I had a small shop for a while, and then I started a little school. These last 3 years have been one long battle. But that's over now, Nora. My dear mother is at rest. She doesn't need me anymore. And my brothers are old enough to work and can look after themselves.
You must have such a free feeling.
No, only one of complete emptiness. I haven't a soul to live for. I suppose that's why I felt I had to get away. I should think here it would be easier to find something to do, something to occupy one's thoughts. I might be lucky enough to get a steady job, some office work perhaps.
But that's so terribly tiring, Christine. And you look so tired already. What you need is a rest. Couldn't you go to some watering place?
I have no father to give me the money, Nora.
Oh, don't be cross with me.
Oh, my dear Nora, you mustn't be cross with me. In my sort of position, it's hard not to become bitter. One has no one to work for, and yet one can't give up the struggle. One must go on living, and it makes one selfish. I'm ashamed to admit it, but just now, when you told me the good news about your husband's new position, I was glad. Not so much for your sake as for mine.
How do you mean? Oh, of course. You think perhaps Torvald might help you.
That's what I thought, yes.
And so he shall, Christine. You just leave it to me. I'll get him in a really good mood, and then I'll bring it up quite casually. Oh, it'll be such fun to help you.
Oh, how good of you, Nora, dear, to bother on my account. It's especially good of you. After all, you've never had to go through any hardship.
I not go through any.
Well, good heavens, a little needlework and so forth. You're just a child, Nora.
You needn't be so patronizing.
No.
You're just like all the rest. You all think I'm incapable of being serious.
Oh, come now.
Well, you seem to think I've had no troubles, that I've been through nothing in my life.
But you just told me all your troubles, Nora, dear.
I've only told you trifles. I haven't told you the really important thing.
Important thing? What do you mean?
I know you look down on me, Christine, but you really shouldn't. You're proud for having worked so hard and so long for your mother.
I don't look down on anyone, Nora. But I can't help feeling proud and happy, too, to have made Mother's last days a little easier.
And you're proud of what you did for your brothers.
I think I have a right to be.
Well, yes, so do I. But I want you to know, Christine, that I too have something to be proud of.
I don't doubt that, but what are you referring to?
Hush. It would be dreadful if Torvald overheard. He mustn't know anything about it. No one must know anything about it except for you.
And what is it, Nora?
Come over here. Yes, I too have something to be proud and happy about. I saved Torvald's life, you see.
Saved his life, but how?
Well, I told you about our trip to Italy. He never would have recovered if it hadn't been for that.
Yes, I know. And your father gave you the necessary money.
That's what everyone thinks. Torvald too, but, well, Papa never gave us a penny. I raised the money myself.
All that money, you?
$1,200, 4,800 crowns. What do you think of that?
But Nora, how on earth did you do it? Did you win it in the lottery?
The lottery? Of course not, silly. Anyone could have done that.
Well, where did you get it then?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you certainly couldn't have borrowed it.
Why not?
A wife can't borrow without her husband's consent.
Oh, I don't know. If a wife has a good head on her shoulders and a little sense of business.
I don't in the least understand, Nora.
Well, you need. Besides, I never said I borrowed it. Perhaps I got it in some other way. Perhaps I got it from some rich admirer. Well, after all, when one is as attractive as I am.
What a mad little creature you are.
I'm sure you're dying of curiosity, Christine.
Nora, are you sure you haven't been a little rash?
Is it rash to save one's husband's life?
But mightn't it be rash to do such a thing behind his back?
But I couldn't tell him. Don't you see? The doctors didn't tell him how sick he was. He wasn't even supposed to know. They came to me directly and told me that his life was in danger and that he could only be saved by living in the South for a while. At first, I tried persuasion. I cried, I begged, I cajoled. I told him how I'd longed to take a trip abroad like all the other young wives. I reminded him of my condition and told him he ought to humor me. And then finally I came right out and suggested that we borrow the money. But then he was almost angry, Christine. He told me I was being frivolous and that it was his duty as my husband not to indulge my whims and fancies. Or at least that's what I think he called them. But then I made up my mind. He must be saved in spite of himself. And so I thought of a way.
But didn't he ever find out from your father that the money was not from him?
No, never. You see, Papa died about that time, and I was going to tell him all about it and beg him not to give me away, but then it was no longer necessary, unfortunately.
And you have never confided all this to your husband?
Good heavens, no, that's out of the question. He's much too strict about matters of that sort. And besides, Torvald could never bear the thought of owing anything to me. Why, it would hurt his self-respect, wound his pride. It would ruin everything between us. It would wreck our whole marriage.
Don't you think you'll ever tell him?
Perhaps, when I'm no longer so pretty and attractive. No, don't laugh. When he's no longer so much in love with me as he is now, and it no longer amuses him to see me dance and dress up and act for him, then it might be useful to have something in reserve. Oh, what nonsense. That day will never come. Well, Christine, what do you think of my great secret? Don't I have something to be proud of, too? It's caused me endless worry, though. It's been dreadfully hard to meet my obligations. Did you know? In business, there are things called installments and quarterly interest, and they're terribly hard to meet on time. I've had to save a little here and a little there, anywhere I could. I couldn't take very much out of housekeeping, for, of course, Torvald had to live well. And I couldn't let the children go about badly dressed, so any money I got for them I spent on them, the darlings.
Oh, poor Nora. I suppose it had to come out of your own allowance.
Yes, of course. But after all, it was my doing. Anytime Torvald gave me a little money for new clothes or something else I needed, I never spent more than half. I always picked out the simplest, cheapest dresses. It's a blessing everything looks well on me. Torvald never knew the difference. But it's been hard sometimes. It's so nice to have pretty clothes, isn't it?
I suppose it is.
And I earned money in other ways, too. Last winter, I was lucky enough to get a lot of copying to do. And so I shut myself up in my room every evening and wrote well into the night. Some days I was absolutely exhausted. But it was fun, earning money and working like that. It made me feel almost like a man.
How much have you managed to pay off?
I don't know exactly. It's hard to keep track of things like that. All I know is that I paid every penny I could scrape together. Some days I didn't know which way to turn. And then I used to pretend that some rich old gentleman had fallen madly in love with me.
What are you talking about? What old gentleman?
Oh, I'm just joking. But then he was to die, and when they opened his will, there in large letters were to be the words, "I leave my entire fortune to that charming Nora Helmer, to be handed over to her immediately."
But who is this old gentleman?
Oh, good heavens, can't you understand? There never was any such old gentleman. I just used to make him up when I was at the end of my rope and didn't know which way to turn. But it doesn't matter now anyway. The tiresome old fellow can stay wherever he's at. I don't need him nor his money. For now, my troubles are over. Imagine, Christine. No more troubles, no more worry. I can play and run with the children. I can make a charming, lovely home for Torvald and have everything just as he likes. And soon spring will be here with its great blue sky. Perhaps we'll take a little trip. I might get to see the ocean again. Oh, Christine, it's so wonderful to be alive and happy.
There's the bell. Perhaps I better go.
Oh, no. Do stay. It's probably just someone for Torvald.
There's a gentleman asking for Mr. Helmer, but I wasn't sure if I should disturb him. The doctor is in.
Who is it?
It is I, Mrs. Helmer.
What do you want?
It's to do with bank business, more or less. I have a small position in the joint stock bank, and I understand your husband is to be the new president.
Then it's
Just routine business, Mrs. Helmer, nothing else.
Well, then, be good enough to go into his study.
Who was that man, Nora?
A Mr. Krogstad. He's a lawyer.
I was right then.
Do you know him?
I used to know him many years ago. He worked in a law office in our town.
Yes, so he did.
How he has changed.
He was unhappily married, they say.
Is he a widower now?
Yes, with lots of children. There, that's better.
I'm told he's mixed up in a lot of rather questionable business.
He may be. I don't really know. But don't let's talk about business. It's so tiresome.
No, I won't disturb you. I'll go in and see your wife for a moment. Oh, beg your pardon. I seem to be in the way here too.
Of course not. Dr. Rank, Mrs. Lynde.
Well, I've often heard that name mentioned in this house. Didn't I pass you on the stairs when I came in?
Yes, I'm afraid I climb them very slowly. They wear me out.
A little on the delicate side, eh?
No, just a bit overtired.
I see. So you come to town for a good rest, round of dissipation.
I've come to look for work.
Is that the best remedy for tiredness?
One has to live, Doctor.
Yes, I'm told that's necessary.
Oh, come now, doctor. You're not above wanting to live yourself.
True enough. No matter how wretched I may be, I always want to hang on as long as possible. All my patients share the same feeling. Even the morally sick seem to have it. Oh, there's a wreck of a man in there with Helmer now.
Whom do you mean?
Oh, his name's Krogstad. He's a lawyer. You wouldn't know anything about him. He's utterly depraved, rotten to the core. Yet, even he declares with what seems to be paramount importance that he must live.
Really? And what did he want with Torvald?
I have no idea. I gathered it was some bank business.
I didn't know that this man Krogstad had anything to do with the bank.
Well, he seems to have a position there. I don't know if this is true in your part of the country, but there are men who go prying about in other people's business looking for individuals of doubtful character. And having once found them, place them in positions of trust where they can keep an eye on them, make use of them at will. Honest men, men of strong moral fiber, they leave out in the cold.
Perhaps the weaklings need more help.
That point of view is fast turning society into a clinic. Why would that make you laugh? I wonder if you know what society is.
Oh, why should I care about your tiresome old society? I was laughing at something quite different, something frightfully amusing. Tell me, Dr. Rank, will all of the bank employees be dependent on Torvald now?
Is that what you found so amusing?
Never you mind. Never you mind. Oh, what fun it is to think that Torvald will have such power over so many people. How about a macaroon, Dr. Rank?
Oh, well, macaroons, eh? I thought they were forbidden here.
These are some that Christine just brought.
What, I?
Oh, now you needn't be so frightened. How could you know that Torvald had forbidden them? He thinks they'll spoil my teeth. But why not for once? Don't you agree, Dr. Rank? And you must have one too, Christine. And I'll have one, just a small one, or at most two. Oh, I am so happy. There's just one thing in all the world that would give me the greatest pleasure.
What's that?
It's something I long to say in front of Torvald.
What's to prevent you?
Oh, I don't dare. It isn't nice.
Not nice.
Well, perhaps it might be unwise, but I'm sure you could say it in front of us. What is it you so long to say in front of Torvald?
I long to say, damn. Damn! Damn it all!
Have you gone crazy?
Gracious, Nora.
Well, go ahead and say it. Here he comes.
Well, Torvald, dear, have you gotten rid of him?
Yes, he's just gone.
Let me introduce you. Torvald, this is Mrs. Lind.
Mrs. Lynn, I'm sorry, I really don't.
Christine Lind, Torvald.
Oh, yes, I suppose you're one of my wife's school friends.
Yes, we knew each other as children.
Imagine, Torvald, Christine came all this long way just to talk to you.
How do you mean?
Well, it wasn't
Well, Christine is dreadfully good at office work, and her greatest dream is to get a position with a really clever man so she can learn still more, you see?
Very sensible, Mrs. Lynn.
And when she heard that you had gotten a position at the bank, it was in the paper, you know. Well, she started off right away. You will try and do something for Christine, won't you, Torvald, dear? For my sake?
Well, I suppose it's not entirely impossible. You're a widow, I presume,
Yes,
and you've had some previous business experience?
a good deal.
Well, then I think it quite likely I may be able to find a place for you.
There, you see? You see?
You've come at a good moment, Mrs. Lynn.
Oh, how can I ever thank you?
Oh, don't mention it, but just now I'm afraid you'll have to excuse me.
I'll go with you.
Oh, don't be long, Torvald, dear.
I shan't be more than an hour.
Oh, are you going too?
Yes, I must go and find a place to live.
Oh, how tiresome that we're so cramped for space. Otherwise, you
Oh,
could.
you mustn't think that, Nora dear. Thanks for everything and goodbye.
Goodbye for now. But you'll come back this evening. Oh, and you too, Dr. Wright. Hey, if you're well enough. But of course you'll be well enough. Wrap up warmly now. Oh, here they come. Here they come. Look at them, Christine. Aren't they sweet? Come in, darling.
Shattering in this awful crap.
Come along, Mrs.
Hello,
Lynn. You have to be a
boys.
mother to put up with this.
How fresh and bright you are, and what red cheeks. And they're like apples and roses.
We ran on a sled.
Oh, you did? Oh my goodness, you all went on the sled? Yes. And who pulled it, Anne-Marie?
I pulled the sled.
Oh, yes, you did. You're such a clever boy, Ivar. Oh, give her to me for a moment, Helene. Hello, my sweet precious doll baby. Wow. Oh, let's dance. Shall we dance? Let's dance like hair.
Get your snowball. Get your snowball.
You did? Well, I should have been in on that. Let's get you out of that coat now, young man. What fun it is to get you undone there.
A dog chased us. A dog chased us.
Oh my goodness, did it bite you?
No.
No. Was it a big dog?
No.
No, it was a little dog. Well, they don't bite precious doll babies, do they?
No, not at all.
Mm-mm. Here you are.
What?
Oh, no, you mustn't touch the packages. No, it might bite. Let's play a game.
Hide and seek.
Hide and seek. Oh, well, are you going to hide first, Bob? You better not. Be careful. I'll hide first and you count.
Let's count. Let's count.
Don't count fast now.
I did my 10.
Slower.
7.
Let's go. Where could she be?
8.
Let's go find her.
And 11.
Where could she be? Where could she be?
Surprise! I found you. You are terrible at this game. Let's tickle. Oh, yes.
I beg your pardon, Mrs. Palmer.
What do you want?
Excuse me, the outer door was ajar. Someone must have forgotten to close it.
My husband's not at home, Mr. Krogstad.
I know that.
Mama, who is this strange man?
Oh, don't worry about the strange man, Eva. He won't do Mama any harm. Now, you go into the nursery with Anne-Marie. We'll go on playing after he's gone.
I want to play, Mama.
I know. When he's gone, we'll go on. You want to speak with me?
Yes, I do.
But today, it's not the first of the month yet.
No, it is Christmas Eve. It's up to you whether your Christmas is a merry one.
Well, what is it you want? Today I can't possibly...
That doesn't concern me for the moment. This is about something else. You have a few minutes, haven't you?
I suppose, so
Good. I was sitting in the restaurant opposite, and I saw your husband go down the street
Well,
with a lady.
what of it?
May I ask if that lady was Mrs. Lind?
Yes.
She's just come to town, hasn't she?
Yes, today.
Is she a good friend of yours?
Yes, she is, but I
used
don't...
to know her too.
Yes, I know you did.
Then you know all about it. I thought as much. Now tell me, is Mrs. Lind to have a place in the bank?
How dare you question me like this, Mr. Krogstad? You, one of my husband's employees. But since you asked, you might as well know. Yes, Mrs. Lind is to have a position at the bank, and it's I who recommended her. Does that satisfy you, Mr. Krogstad?
I was right then.
After all, one has to have a little influence every now and then. Just because one is a woman, it doesn't always follow that. People in subordinate positions, Mr. Krogstad, really ought to be careful how they offend anyone who...
Has influence?
Precisely.
Then perhaps you'll be so kind, Mrs. Helmer, as to use your influence on my behalf.
How do you mean?
Perhaps you'll be good enough to see that I retain my subordinate position.
But I don't understand. Who wants to take it from you?
Oh, don't try and play the innocent. I can well understand it would be uncomfortable for your friend to associate with me, and I understand, too, whom I have to thank for my dismissal.
But I assure you.
Never mind all that. There's still time, but I advise you to use your influence to prevent this.
But, Mr. Krogstad, I have no influence. Absolutely none.
Indeed, I thought you just told me yourself.
You know, you misunderstood me. Really, you didn't. You must know that my husband would never be influenced by me.
Your husband and I were at the university together. I know him well. I don't imagine he's more inflexible than other married men.
Don't you dare talk disrespectfully about my husband, or I'll show you the door.
The little lady's plucky.
I'm no longer afraid of you. I'll soon be free of all this after the first of the year.
Listen to me, Mrs. Helmer. This is a matter of life and death to me. I warn you I shall fight with all my might to keep my position in the bank.
So it seems.
Not just the salary, that's the least important part of it, it's something else. I might as well be frank with you. I suppose you know, like everyone else, that once, a long time ago, I got into quite a bit of trouble.
I have heard something about it, yes.
The matter never came to court, but from that time on, all doors were closed to me. I then went into the business with which you are familiar. I had to do something, and I don't think I've been among the worst. Now I must get away from all that. My sons are growing up, you see, and for their sake, I'm determined to recapture my good name. This position at the bank was to be the first step, and now your husband wants to kick me back into the mud again.
But I assure you, Mr. Krogstad, it's not in my power to help you.
Only because you don't really want to. But I can compel you to do it if I choose.
You wouldn't tell my husband that I owe you money.
Suppose I were to.
Well, that would be a dreadful thing to do. My secret that I've guarded with such pride, such joy. Well, it would be such a horrible thing for him to find it out in such an ugly, distasteful way. To find it out from you, I couldn't bear it. It would just be too horribly unpleasant.
Only unpleasant, Mrs. Helmer?
But just you do it. Then you'll be the one to suffer, for then my husband will really know what kind of a man you are, and there'll be no chance of you keeping your position.
Didn't you hear my question? I asked if it was only unpleasantness you feared.
If my husband found out about it, he'd naturally pay you off immediately, and then we'd have nothing more to do with you.
Listen, Mrs. Helmer. Either you have a very bad memory or you know nothing about business. I think I better make the position clear to you.
How do you mean?
When your husband fell ill, you came to me to borrow $1,200.
I didn't know what else to do.
I promised to find you the money.
And you did find it.
I promised to find you the money on certain conditions. At the time, you were so taken up with your husband's illness and so anxious to procure the money for your journey that you probably did not give much thought to details. Perhaps I'd better remind you of them. I agreed to find you the amount in exchange for a note which I drew up.
Yes, and I signed it.
Very good. But then I added a clause stating that your father would stand sponsor for the debt. This clause your father was to have signed.
Was to? Well, he did sign it.
I left the date blank so that your father himself should date his signature. You recall that?
Yes, I believe.
I then gave you the paper and you were to mail it to your father and bring it back to me. Isn't that so?
Yes.
And you must have mailed it at once, for 5 or 6 days later you brought me back the paper with your father's signature, and then I handed you the money.
Well, haven't I made my payments punctually?
Fairly, yes, but to return to the point, that was a very sad time for you, wasn't it, Mrs. Helmer?
It was, indeed.
Your father was very ill, I believe?
Yes, he was dying.
And he did die soon after, didn't he?
Yes.
Now, tell me, Mrs. Helmer, do you happen to recollect the date of your father's death, the day of the month, I mean?
Father died on the 29th of September.
Quite correct. I have made inquiries. Now, here's a strange thing, Mrs. Helmer, something rather difficult to explain.
What do you mean? What strange thing?
The strange thing about it is that your father seems to have signed this paper 3 days after his death.
I don't understand.
Your father died on September 29th. Look at this. His signature is dated October 2nd. Isn't that rather strange, Mrs. Helmer? Can you explain that to me? It is curious, too, that the words October 2nd and the year are not in your father's handwriting, but in a handwriting I seem to know. This could be easily explained, however. Your father might have forgotten to date his signature, and someone might have added the date at random before the fact of your father's death was known. There's nothing wrong with that. It all depends on the signature itself. It is, of course, genuine, Mrs. Helmer. It was your father himself who signed his name here?
No, it wasn't. I wrote Father's name.
I suppose you realize, Mrs. Helmer, what a dangerous confession that is.
Why should it be dangerous? You'll soon get your money.
I'd like to ask you a question. Why didn't you send the paper to your father?
It was impossible. Father was too ill. If I would have asked him for his signature, he would have wanted to know what the money was for. And in his condition, I simply couldn't tell him that my husband's life was in danger. That's why it was impossible.
Wouldn't it have been wiser to give up on the journey?
Give it up. That journey was to save my husband's life. I simply couldn't give it up.
And it never occurred to you that you weren't being honest with me.
I really couldn't concern myself with that. You meant nothing to me. Actually, I really couldn't help disliking you for making it all so difficult with your cold, business-like clauses and conditions when you knew my husband's life was at stake.
You evidently haven't the faintest idea, Mrs. Helmer, what you have been guilty of. Yet let me tell you, it was nothing more and nothing worse that made me an outcast from society.
You don't expect me to believe that you ever did anything brave to save your wife's life?
The law takes no account of motives.
Well, then it must be a very bad law.
Bad or not, if I produce this document in court, you will be condemned according to the law.
I don't believe that for a minute. You mean to tell me that a daughter has no right to spare her dying father worry and anxiety? Or that a wife has no right to save her husband's life? I may not know much about it, but I'm sure there must be something or other in the law that permits such things. You as a lawyer should know that. You don't seem to know very much about the law, Mr. Krogstad.
Possibly not. But business, the kind of business we're concerned with, I do know something about. Wouldn't you agree? Very well then, do as you please. But I warn you, if I am made to suffer a second time, you shall keep me company.
What nonsense. He's just trying to frighten me. I'm not as much a fool as all that. And yet, no, it's impossible. After all, I only did it for love's sake.
Mama, the strange man is gone now.
Yes, he's gone. But don't tell anyone about the strange man. You hear? Not even Papa.
Yes, Mama. But will he play with us now?
Oh, no, not just now. I have so much to do. You go run along with Anne-Marie. We'll play later.
Okay, Mama. All right.
No. Helene, bring in the tree to me. It's impossible. It's utterly impossible. Where would you like it, ma'am? Just here on the table.
Do you need anything else?
No. Oh, that dreadful man. Ah, what nonsense. The tree will look lovely. I'll do everything to please you, Torvald. I'll sing for you. I'll dance for you. Oh! Are you home already?
Yes, has somebody been here?
No, no one.
That's odd. I just saw Krogstad leaving the house.
Really? Oh, well, as a matter of fact, he was here for a moment.
Nora, I can tell by your manner, he came here to ask you to put in a good word for him, didn't he?
Yes, Torvald.
And you weren't supposed to tell me he'd been here. It was to be as if it was of your own accord, isn't that it?
Yes, Torvald, but
Nora? Nora? How could you do such a thing? To have dealings with a man like that, to make him promises, and then to lie about it too?
lie?
Didn't you tell me no one had been here? My little lark must never do that again. A songbird must sing clear and true. No false notes. Now, isn't that the way it should be? Yes, of course it is. There. Now we'll say no more about it. It is so cozy and peaceful here.
Torvald,
Yes?
I'm so looking forward to the Stensberg's fancy dress ball tomorrow evening.
I can't wait to see what surprise you have in store for me.
Oh, it's so dreadful, Torvald.
What is?
I can't think of anything amusing. It all seems so silly and pointless.
Has my little Nora come to that conclusion?
Are you very busy, Torvald?
Well,
What are all those papers?
just bank business.
Already?
Well, the board of directors has given me complete authority to do some reorganizing, to make some necessary changes to the staff. I'll have to work on it all through Christmas week. I'd like it all settled before the new year.
I see. So that's why poor Krogstad. Torvald, if you weren't so very, very busy, I'd ask you to do me a great, great favor.
Well, out with it.
Oh, Torvald, you have such perfect taste, and I do so want to look well at the Stensberg's fancy dress ball. Couldn't you take me in hand and decide what I'm to be, and arrange my costume for me?
Well, so we're not so self-sufficient after all. We need a helping hand, do we?
Oh, Torvald, dear, I know I shall never manage without your help.
I'll think about it. I'm sure we'll hit on something.
How sweet of you. Oh, those flowers look lovely. Torvald,
Yes?
did that Krogstad do something very wrong?
He committed forgery. Have you any idea what that means?
Perhaps he did it out of necessity.
Or perhaps he was just foolhardy, like so many others. Now, I'm not so harsh as to condemn a man irrevocably for one mistake.
No, of course not.
No, a man has a chance to rehabilitate himself as long as he admits his guilt and accepts his punishment.
Punishment?
But that wasn't Krogstad's way. He resorted to lies and evasions, became thoroughly demoralized.
Do you really think it would?
When a man has something like that on his conscience, his whole life becomes a tissue of lies and deceit. He's forced to wear a mask, even with those closest to him, his wife and his children even. And the children, Nora, that's the worst part of it.
Why?
Well, the whole atmosphere of the home would be contaminated. The very air the children breathe would be filled with evil.
Do you really think so?
As a lawyer, I know these things from experience. Nearly all cases of early delinquency come from dishonest mothers.
Why only mothers?
Well, it usually comes from the mother's side, but I suppose it can come from the father's also. Yes, we lawyers know a lot about these things. And that is why this Krogstad has been deliberately poisoning his children for years by filling his home with lies and hypocrisy. And that is why I call him demoralized. And so, my sweet little Nora, we must promise not to plead his cause. Shake hands on it. What's the matter? Come here. Give me your hand. There. That's settled. Besides, it would have been quite impossible for me to work with him. It literally gives me a feeling of discomfort to be in contact with such people.
It's so warm here, and I have such a lot to do.
Yes, and I really should try to look through these papers before dinner. I'll give some thought to your costume as well. And perhaps I may even find something to wrap in gilt paper and place on the Christmas tree. My own precious little songbird.
No, it's impossible. It's utterly impossible.
The babies keep begging to come in and be with Mama.
No, no, don't let them come to me, Anne-Marie. Keep them with you.
Very well, ma'am.
Harm my children, corrupt my home. It can't be true. I know it's not. It could never, never be true.
Now that the happy part of the play is over.
Please don't say that.
I know this play because I had to put it out when he's way backwards. Because for my he's like, let's say, so I took theater. I'm not going to. Well, they're doing an excellent job. They really, really are. It's exactly what the person wanted to say. It was basically a play that was, well, like outrageous for itself. Because Ibsen spent a lot of time it's based on a person who used to was a friend of a female author in her life. And she never talked to him after he put it out. Because it was about her, she knows. And that was the last of it. And then the endings, there's all kinds of different endings to it because some of the countries aren't going to let us back in those days. And you can see what it's all about. I mean, it's all about, you know, the woman is supposed to take the back seat, you know, and patronized in all situations. And he's, you know, totally rigid in what he thinks. It doesn't matter what she thinks. But well, that was what he was getting after, because he was kind of ahead of his time too, as far as how people ought to be treated. And so, you know, he liked the woman who didn't like him. That was the price that was paid. But out of it came one of the best plays they had. But it's there'd be an awful lot of people having a hard time with this. Oh yeah, it is. He wrote a lot. For very different things.
I know they have different programs.
Has someone come? No? No one? Oh, of course no one will come on Christmas Day, nor the day after. But perhaps... Oh, there's nothing in the mailbox. It's quite empty. Oh, what nonsense. Of course no one will come. After all, I have 3 little children.
Well, I found the box with the fancy dress clothes at last, Miss Nora.
Put it on the sofa.
I'm afraid they're rather shabby.
Oh. Oh. If I had my way, I'd rip them to 1,000 pieces.
Good heavens, they can be repaired. Have a little patience.
I'll go get Mrs. Lynn to help me.
Oh no, I wouldn't go out in this awful weather, Miss Nora. You could catch cold and get sick.
Worse things might happen. How are the children?
Well, the poor dears are playing with their Christmas presents, but
Have they asked about me?
they're so used to having Mama with them.
I know Anne-Marie, but I won't be able to be with them as much as I used to.
Well, small children soon get used to most anything.
Do you really believe that? Would they forget all about me if I were to go away for good?
Good heavens, for good?
Tell me something, Anne-Marie. I've so often wondered about it. How could you bear to give up your child and give it away to strangers?
Well, you see, I had to. When I came to nurse my little Nora.
Yes, but how could you bear to do it?
I couldn't afford to say no to such a good physician. A poor girl who's been in trouble must take what comes. Not that he'd offer to help me, the wicked sinner.
Then I suppose your daughter's forgotten all about you.
Oh, no. Indeed, she hasn't. She's even written to me. Once when she was confirmed and once when she was married.
Oh, Anne-Marie, you were a good mother to me when I was little.
Oh, but then my poor Nora had no mother of her own.
And if ever my little ones were to be without, you'd look after them, wouldn't you? Oh, what nonsense. Go back to them now, Anne-Marie. Now I must. Oh, you just wait and see how lovely I'll look.
My Miss Nora will be the prettiest person there.
Oh, I wish I dared go out. I'm afraid someone might come. I'm afraid something might happen while I'm out. No, I must try not to think about it. Oh, that muff needs cleaning. What pretty gloves. How lovely they are. Oh, I must put it out of my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, they're here. Oh, it's you, Christine. There isn't anyone else there, is there? Oh, I'm so glad you've come.
I got a message. You've been asking for me.
Yes, I was just passing by. Oh, there's something I want you to help me with. Come here, sit down on the sofa. Now listen, there's to be a fancy dress ball tomorrow evening at the Stensbergs. They live just overhead, and Torvald wants me to go dressed as a Neapolitan peasant girl and dance a tarantella. I learned it while we were at Capri.
So you're going to give a real performance, are you?
Well, Torvald wants me to. Look, here's the costume. He had it made for me while we were there, but it's all torn, and I don't know whether or not we can...
Oh, it's just the trimming that's come loose here and there. We'll soon fix that. Have you a needle and thread?
Yeah.
Here's everything I need.
It's awfully good of you.
So you're going to be all dressed up. What fun, Nora. You know, I might run in for a minute just to see you in your costume. I haven't really thanked you for last night. I had such a happy time.
Somehow it didn't seem as happy to me as usual. I wish you'd come a little earlier, Christine. Torvald does have a way of making things so gay and cozy.
Well, so have you. That's your father coming out in you. But tell me, is Dr. Rank always so depressed?
No. Last night was worse than usual. He's dreadfully ill, you see. Tuberculosis of the spine or something like that. His father was a frightful man who kept mistresses and that sort of thing. That's why his son has to be an invalid since birth.
Why, Nora, what do you know about such things?
Well, after all, I've had 3 children, and those women who look after one after childbirth know almost as much as the doctors, and they love to gossip.
Does Dr. Rank come here every day?
Yes, every single day. He's Torvald's best friend. He always has been. And he's my friend, too. He's almost like one of the family.
Do you think he's quite sincere, Nora? I mean, isn't he inclined to flatter people?
Oh, quite the contrary. Whatever gave you that idea?
When you introduced us yesterday, he said he had often heard my name mentioned here. But I noticed afterwards, your husband hadn't the faintest notion who I was.
Oh,
How could Dr. Rain...
he was quite right, Christine. You see, Torvald loves me so tremendously that he doesn't want to share me with anyone. He wants me all to himself, as he says. At first, he used to get extremely jealous if I even mentioned any of my old friends from back home. So, naturally, I quit doing it. But I often talk to Dr. Rank about such things. He likes hearing about them.
Listen to me, Nora. In many ways, you're still a child. I'm somewhat older than you, and besides, I've had much more experience. I think you ought to put a stop to all this with Dr. Rank.
Put a stop to what?
To the whole business. You said something yesterday about an admirer who's to give you money.
One who never existed, unfortunately. Go on.
Has Dr. Rank money?
Yes, yes he has.
And he has no one dependent on him?
No, no one.
And he comes here every single day?
Yes, I've just told you.
It's surprising that a sensitive man like that should be so importunate.
I don't understand you.
Don't try to deceive me, Nora. Don't you suppose I can guess who lent you the $1,200?
You must be out of your mind. Oh, how could you even think such a thing? I mean, he's a friend of ours. He comes to see us every day. The situation would have been impossible.
So it wasn't he then?
No, I assure you. I never would have dreamt of such a thing. Besides, he didn't have any money at that time. He came into it later.
Perhaps that is just as well, Nora.
No, it never would have came into my head to think of something like that. But still, sure, if I did ask Dr. Rank.
But you won't, of course.
Oh, no, of course not. Anyway, I don't see why it should be necessary. But still, if I talk to Dr. Rank about it,
Behind your husband's back?
I must get that thing cleared up. After all, that's behind his back, too.
That's just what I said yesterday, but
It's so much easier for a man to manage things like that.
one's own husband, yes.
Oh, nonsense. Surely, if one pays back what one owes, the paper is returned to you.
Naturally.
And then you can rip it into 1,000 pieces and burn it, the nasty, filthy thing.
Nora, you're hiding something from me.
You can see it in my face, can't you?
Something's happened to you since yesterday morning. Nora, what is it?
Christine, hush, here comes Torvald. Go into the nursery. Torvald hates anything to do with sewing. Get Anne-Marie to help you.
Very well, but I shan't go until you've told me all about it.
Oh, Torvald, how I've missed you, dear.
Was that the dressmaker?
No, it was Christine. She's helping me with my costume. It's going to look so nice.
Wasn't that a good idea of mine?
It's Splendid. But wasn't it good of me to let you have your way?
Good of you to let your own husband have his way. There, you crazy little thing. Now, I won't disturb you. I'm sure you have to try your dress on.
Yes, and I suppose you have work.
Yes, I've just come from the bank.
Torvald,
Yes.
if your little squirrel were to beg you with all of her heart,
Well,
would you do her a favor?
well, that depends on what it is.
Oh, please do say yes, Torvald. Your little squirrel would play such pretty tricks for you.
Well, out with it.
Your little lark would twitter all day long.
She does that anyway.
I'd pretend to be an elf and dance for you in the moonlight, Torvald.
Nora, surely you're not getting back to what we talked about this morning.
Oh, I do so humbly beg you, Torvald, dear.
You have the temerity to bring that up again.
You must give in to me on this. You must let Krogstad keep his place.
I'm giving his place to Mrs. Lynde.
Oh, that's awfully sweet of you. But instead of Mr. Krogstad, couldn't you dismiss some other clerk?
What incredible obstinacy! Because you were foolish enough to make him promises, am I supposed to
That's
compromise?
not the reason, Torvald. It's for your own sake. Didn't you tell me yourself that he writes for the most horrible newspapers? Why, there's no end to the harm that he can do you. I'm so afraid of him.
I see. So you have some unpleasant memories, and that's why you're afraid.
How do you mean?
Aren't you thinking of your father?
Yes. Yes. You remember how those awful people slandered poor father in the newspaper? If you hadn't been sent to investigate and been so kind and helpful, he might have lost his position.
But Nora, there is a distinct difference between your father and me. Your father's conduct was not entirely unimpeachable, but mine is, and I expect it to remain so.
Oh, Torvald, there's no end to what evil-minded people can think up. We could be so happy in our peaceful home now, with you and I and the children. Please, Torvald, I beg you.
The more you plead his cause, the less likely I am to keep him on. It's already known at the bank I intend to dismiss Krogstad. If I were to change my mind now, well, people might think I've done it at the insistence of my wife.
Well, what of that?
Oh, nothing, of course, as long as the obstinate little woman gets her way. I'd simply be the laughingstock of the entire staff. They'd think I were weak and easily influenced, and I should soon be made to feel the consequences. Besides, there is one other factor that makes it quite impossible for Krogstad to remain in the bank as long as I am head there.
What could that be?
His past mistakes I may be able to overlook.
Yes, you might, mightn't you,
And
Torvald?
I am told he's an excellent worker, but unfortunately we were friendly during our college days. It was one of those impetuous friendships that subsequently proved to be embarrassing. He's tactless enough to call me by my first name, regardless of the circumstance, and feels quite justified in taking a familiar tone with me. At any given moment, he comes out with Torvald this and Torvald that. It's acutely irritating, and has made my position at the bank quite impossible.
Torvald, surely you're not serious about all that.
Why not?
But it's also petty.
Petty! Oh, you think I'm petty?
No, Torvald, quite the opposite.
Oh,
That's
no,
why
you call my motives petty, so therefore I must be petty as well.
No.
Very well, we'll settle this here and now. Helene,
What do you want?
I want this matter settled. Take this letter, have it sent by messenger at once. It's urgent. Here's some money.
Very good, sir.
There, little Miss Obstinacy.
Torvald, what was in that letter?
Krogstad's dismissal.
Call her back, Torvald. There's still time. Call her back. You don't know what may come. Don't send that letter. For my sake, for your sake, for the sake of the children, don't send that letter.
It's too late!
Too late. Yes.
Nora? Darling, I forgive your fears. Although it's not entirely flattering to think I might be afraid of any spiteful nonsense this Krogstad could choose to write about me. But I forgive you all the same. It shows how much you love me. But Nora, you must be sure of something. No matter what comes of this, you must know that I have strength and courage for both of us. My shoulders are broad. I shall bear the burden.
How do you mean?
The whole burden, my darling. You mustn't worry.
No, you mustn't. I won't let you.
And we'll share it, Nora. As husband and wife, isn't that how it should be? There, aren't you happy now? Don't look at me like a frightened little dove. You're just imagining things, you know. No. Hadn't you better play the tarantella through and practice your tambourine? I'll go into my study and close the door. You can make as much noise as you like. You won't disturb me. And when rain comes, just tell him where I am.
He'd do it too. He'd do it in spite of everything. But he mustn't. Never, never. Anything but that. There must be some way out. Oh, what shall I do? Dr. Rank. Oh, anything but that. Anything but that. How are you, Dr. Rank? I recognized your ring. Don't go in to see Torvald just yet. I think he's busy.
What about you?
Oh, you know I always have an hour to spare for you.
Many thanks. I'll make use of that privilege as long as possible.
How do you mean, as long as possible?
Does that frighten you?
Well, no, but it's such a queer expression. Has something happened?
I've known about it for a long time. I didn't expect it would come quite so soon.
What have you found out? Dr. Rank, please tell me.
I haven't much time left. There's nothing to do about it.
Oh, it's about you.
Yes, what did you think? There's no use lying to oneself. I am the most miserable of all my patients, Mrs. Helmer. I've been taking stock of my position these past few days, and I find myself completely bankrupt. Within a month, I shall be rotting in the churchyard.
Oh, what a ghastly way to talk.
Well, it is a perfectly ghastly business. There are so many ghastly things to be done before it's over. I have one final examination to make, and then I will know when the final dissolution will begin. Oh, there's something I want to say to you. Helmer's sensitive nature is repelled by anything ugly. I won't have him
Oh,
near
Dr.
me with...
Gray.
No, I won't have it. I couldn't bear it. I will bar the door against it. When I'm absolutely certain of the worst, I will send you my visiting card, marked with a black cross. That will mean the final horror has begun.
Now, Dr. Rank, you are in a dreadful mood. And I was so hoping to find you in a good humor.
With death staring me in the face. And why should I have to expiate another's sins? What justice is there in that? Well, I suppose in every family there are some such debts that must be paid.
Oh, what nonsense. Come along. Cheer up.
One might as well laugh. You know, it really is very funny when you come to think of it, that my poor innocent spine should be made to suffer for my father's exploits.
Well, he was very much addicted to asparagus tips and pate pate foie gras, wasn't he?
Yes, and truffles.
Oh, yes, truffles, of course. And I suppose oysters as well.
Masses of oysters, certainly.
And all the wine and champagne that went with them. It is such a pity that all these pleasant things are so damaging to the spine.
And when it's a poor, miserable spine that never had any of the fun.
Yes, that's the biggest shame of all.
Hmm?
Why did you smile?
No, you were the one who laughed.
No, you were the one who smiled, Dr. Ray.
You are more of a rogue than I thought you were.
I'm full of mischief today.
So it seems.
Dear, dear Dr. Rank, don't go and die and leave Torvald and me.
Oh, you won't miss me long. Those who leave are soon forgotten.
How do you mean?
Oh, people develop new interests, and then
What do you mean, new interests?
that'll happen to you and Helmer when I'm gone. You seem to have a head start on it already. What was that Mrs. Lind doing here last evening?
Surely you're not jealous of poor old Christine.
Yes, I am. She will be my successor in this house. When I'm gone, she'll probably...
She's in there.
Oh, she's here again. See?
She's just helping me with my costume. Good heavens, you are in a terrible mood. Now, Dr. Ray, do try to be good. Tomorrow evening you'll see how beautifully I'll dance, and you can pretend it's all to please you. And Torvald too, of course. That's understood?
You know, sitting here talking to you so informally, I can't imagine what would have become of me had I not had this house to come to.
You really do feel at home with us, don't you?
Be obliged to leave it all.
Oh, nonsense. You're not going to leave anything.
Not even be able to leave behind one, even the smallest proof of gratitude, a fleeting regret, an empty space to be filled by the first person who comes along.
And supposing I were to ask you for, no,
For what?
for a great proof of your friendship?
Oh, yes. Yes.
No, I mean a really tremendous favor.
You really, for once, do me that great happiness?
But you don't know what it is.
But then tell me.
Oh, I don't think I can, Dr. Rank. It's much too much to ask. It's more than just a favor. I need your help and advice as well.
All the better. I have no conception of what you're talking about, but tell me, you do know that you can trust me, don't you?
More than anyone, I know that you're my best and truest friend, so I can tell you. Well then, Dr. Rank, there's something you must help me prevent. You know how deeply, how intensely Torvald loves me. He wouldn't hesitate for a moment to give up his life for my sake.
Laura, do you think he is the only one
For what?
who would gladly give his life for you?
I see.
I was determined to tell you this before I went away. There will never be a better time to tell you. Well, Nora, now you know, you must know now that you can trust me as you can no one else.
Let me get by.
Nora.
Bring in the lamp, Helene. Oh, Dr. Rank, that was a really horrid thing to do.
To love you as much as someone else could? Is that horrid?
No. But telling me, there was no need to do that.
What do you mean? Did you know? Nora, Mrs. Helmer, tell me, did you know?
How do I know what I knew and didn't know? I really can't say. Dr. Rank, how could so clumsy. It was all so nice.
Well, at any rate, you now know that I stand ready to serve you body and soul, so tell me.
After this,
Beg you, tell me what it is.
I can't tell you anything now.
But you must, don't punish me like that. Let me be of use to you. I will do anything for you, anything within human power.
You can do nothing for me now. And anyway, I don't really need any help. I was just imagining things, that's all it was, really. Aren't you a fine one, Dr. Rank? Aren't you a bit ashamed now that the lamp's been lit?
No, really not. But I suppose I had better go now, for good.
You'll do no such thing. You must come here every day, just as you always have. Torvald could never get on without you.
What about you?
You know I always love having you here.
Yes. Perhaps that's what misled me. I have always thought you liked having me here as much as you liked being with Helmer.
Well, there are those that one loves best, and then there are those that one would rather be with.
Yes, there's something in that.
When I was still at home, it was, of course, Papa whom I loved best. But every chance I got, I used to sneak down to the servants' quarters. I used to love being with them. To start with, they never lectured me a bit. And it was such fun to hear them talk.
I see. So now you have me instead.
Oh, dear darling Dr. Rank, I didn't mean it like that, really. But now Torvald comes first, just Papa did. You understand?
I beg your pardon, ma'am.
Oh,
Anything wrong?
oh, it's just my new costume.
Isn't that your costume there?
Yes, that one. But this is a new one I've ordered. Torvald mustn't know.
So that's the big secret.
Yes, of course. Why don't you go into him now? He's in his study, and keep him
You
there.
shan't
just as-
escape me.
He's in the kitchen?
Yes, ma'am, he came up the back stairs.
Why didn't you tell him I was busy?
I did, but he insisted.
And he won't go away?
Not until he has spoken with you, ma'am.
Very well then, Helene. Show him in, but quietly. No one must know. It's about a surprise for my husband.
I understand that.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen anyway. No. No, it can't. Speak quietly. My husband is at home.
What's that to me?
What is it you want?
I want to make sure of something.
Well, quickly.
I suppose you know I've been dismissed?
I couldn't prevent it, Mr. Krogstad. I did everything in my power, but it was useless.
So that's all your husband cares about you? He must realize what I can put you through, and yet he dares...
You don't imagine that my husband knows about it?
No, I didn't really suppose he did. I can't imagine my friend Torvald Helmer showing that much courage.
I insist you speak respectfully about my husband.
With all due respect, I assure you. But am I right in thinking, since you are so anxious to keep the matter secret, that you have a clearer idea today than you had yesterday of what you really did?
Clearer than you could have given me.
Of course, I who know so little about the law.
What do you want from me?
I just wanted to see how you were getting on, Mrs. Helmer. I've been thinking about you all day. You see, even a mere moneylender, a cheap journalist, in short, someone like me, is not entirely without feeling.
Then prove it. Think of my children.
Did you or your husband think of mine? That's beside the point. I only wanted to tell you not to take this matter too seriously. I shan't take any action, for the present at least.
No, you won't, will you? I was sure that you wouldn't.
It can all be settled quite amicably. It needn't be made public. It needn't go beyond us three.
But my husband must never know about it.
How can you prevent it? Can you pay off the balance?
Not immediately.
Have you any way of raising the money within the next few days?
None that I'll make use of.
And if you had, it would have made no difference. Even if you were to offer me the entire sum in cash, I still wouldn't give you back your note.
What are you going to do with it?
I shall simply keep it. I shall guard it carefully. No one outside the three of us should know a thing about it. So if you have any thought of doing something desperate,
I shall.
of running away from home, for instance,
I shall.
or perhaps something even worse,
How could you have guessed that?
then put all such thoughts out of your head.
How could you have known that I thought of that?
Most of us think of that at first. I thought of it too, but I didn't have the courage.
No. I haven't either.
No, you haven't the courage either, have you?
I haven't. I haven't.
Besides, it would be a very foolish thing to do. You'll just have to get through one domestic storm and then it'll all be over. I have a letter for your husband here in my pocket,
Telling him all about it.
sparing you as much as possible.
My husband must never read that letter, Mr. Krogstad. Tear it up. I promise you I'll get you the money somehow.
Excuse me, Mrs. Helmer, but I thought I just told you.
I'm not talking about the money that I owe you. Just tell me how much money you want from my husband, and I swear I'll get it somehow.
I want no money from your husband.
Then what do you want?
Just this, I want a new start. I want to make something of myself, and your husband shall help me do it. For the past 18 months, my conduct has been irreproachable. It's been a hard struggle. I've lived in abject poverty. Still, I was content to work my way up gradually, step by step. But now I've been dismissed, and I shall not be satisfied to be merely reinstated, taken back on sufferance. No, I intend to continue working at the bank, but I expect to be promoted. Your husband shall create a new position for me.
He'll never do it.
Oh, yes, he will. I know it. He'll do it without a murmur. He wouldn't dare do otherwise. And then you'll see. Within a year, I'll be his right-hand man. It'll be Nils Krogstad, not Torvald Helmer, who will run the joint stock bank.
That will never happen.
No? Would you perhaps?
Yes, I have the courage for it now.
You don't frighten me. A dainty, pampered little lady such as you.
You'll see. You'll see.
Yes, I dare say. How would you like to lie there under the ice? In that freezing, pitch-black water? And then in the spring, your body would be found floating on the surface? Hideous, hairless, unrecognizable?
You can't frighten me.
You can't frighten me either. People don't do that sort of thing, Mrs. Helmer, and anyway, what would be the use? I'd still have your husband in my power.
You mean afterward? Even if I were...
Remember, I'd still have your reputation in my hands. I'm giving you fair warning. I wouldn't do anything foolish if I were you. As soon as Helmer receives my letter, I shall expect to hear from him. And just remember this. I've been forced back into my former way of life, and your husband is responsible. I shall never forgive him for it. Goodbye, Mrs. Helmer.
He's gone. He didn't leave the letter. No. No, of course he didn't. What's he doing? He stopped outside the door. He's not going down the stairs? Has he changed his mind? Is he... The letter... The letter is in the box. Oh, Torvald, now we're lost.
think it's all right, Mom. You'll just try it on.
Come here, Christine.
What's the matter with you? You look upset.
Come here. Do you see that letter? Do you see it in the box?
Yes, I see it.
It's from Krogstad.
Nora, you don't mean that Krogstad lent you the money?
Yes. And now Torvald will know everything.
It would be much the best thing for you both, Nora.
No, but you don't know everything. I committed forgery.
Good heavens.
Christine, you must be my witness.
How do you mean witness? What am I to?
If I should go out of my mind, and that might easily happen,
Nora?
or if something should happen to me when I wouldn't be able to be here anymore,
Nora, you're right beside
or if
yourself.
someone should try to take the blame upon himself, the whole blame, you understand?
Yes, but what
Then
makes
you
you
must bear witness to the fact that it isn't true. I'm in my right mind now. I know exactly what I'm saying. And I did the whole thing by myself. No one else knew anything about it. Just remember that.
Very well, I will. But I don't understand at all.
No. How could you? It's the wonderful thing. It's about to happen.
What wonderful thing?
The wonderful thing. But it must never be allowed to happen. It would be too terrible.
I'll go and talk to Krogstad at once.
No, don't talk to him. He might do you some harm.
There was a time he would have done anything in the world for me.
He?
Where does he live?
How do I know? Oh, yes. His card. But the letters. Oh, what is it? What do you want?
Oh, don't be frightened. We're not coming in. Anyway, you locked the door. Are you trying on?
Yes, yes, I am trying on. I'm going to look so pretty, Torvald.
He lives just round the corner.
But it won't do any good. The letter is in the
I
box.
suppose your husband has the key?
Yes, of course.
Krogstad must ask for his letter back unread. He must make up some excuse.
But this is the time that Torvald
Prevent
usually...
him. Keep him occupied. I'll be back as quickly as I can.
Torvald!
Well, may one venture to come back into one's own living room? Come along, Rank. Now we shall see. Why, what's this?
What, Torvald, dear?
A Rank led me to believe some wonderful disguise.
That's what I understood. Perhaps I was mistaken.
Tomorrow evening. Then I shall appear in all of my splendor.
But you do seem awful tired, Nora. Perhaps you've been practicing too hard.
Oh, I haven't practiced at all yet.
You really ought to, though.
Yes, I really should, Torvald. But I can't seem to manage without your help.
Well,
I'm afraid I've forgotten all about it.
we'll see what we can do. I'm sure it will all come back to you.
You will help me, won't you, Torvald? Promise? I'm so nervous. All those people? You must forget all about business and think only of me. Please, Torvald, do you promise me you will?
Okay, I promise. Tonight I shall be your very own slave, my poor, helpless little darling. But first, one moment.
Oh, what do you want out there?
I just want to see if there are any letters.
Oh, don't, Torvald. Don't worry about that now.
It will only
Oh,
take a
please,
minute.
Torvald, there aren't any.
Aha!
I shan't be able to dance tomorrow evening if I don't rehearse with you.
Are you really this nervous, Nora, darling?
Yes, Torvald, I'm terrified. Let's rehearse right away. There's plenty of time before dinner. Please, Torvald, sit down. Play for me. Direct me. Guide me. You know how you do.
With pleasure, if you wish me to.
Now play for me. Now I'll dance.
I'll pay for her.
Yes, do, then I shall be able to direct her. Stop, this is madness, right? I really can't believe it, Nora. It's as though you've forgotten everything I ever taught you.
I told you I had.
This needs an immense amount of work.
That's what I said. You see how important this is? You must work with me up to the very last minute. Promise me you will.
I most certainly will.
You mustn't open a single letter. You mustn't even look in the letterbox. You must concentrate only on me. Please, Torvald, promise.
Nora, I believe you're still worried about that wretched man.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Nora, there's a letter from him in the mailbox, isn't there?
Maybe. I don't know. I believe that there is. But do not to look at that sort of thing now. Nothing must come between us from now until after the party.
Don't go against her.
Very well. The child shall have her way. But tomorrow evening, when your dance is through,
Then you'll be free.
Dinner is served, ma'am.
We'll have champagne, Helene?
Very good, ma'am.
quite a feast, I see.
Yes, a real feast. We'll stay up until dawn drinking champagne. Oh, and Helene, we'll have macaroons. Lots of them. Why not for once?
Nora, not so violent. Be my own little lark again.
I will, Torvald. But now you two go in and let Christine help me with my hair.
Is anything the matter? I mean, anything.
No, just those childish fears I was telling you about.
Well,
He's gone out of town.
I saw it in your face.
He'll be back tomorrow evening. I left a note for him.
You needn't have bothered. There's nothing you can do. After all, there's a kind of joy in waiting for the wonderful thing to happen.
I don't understand. What is this thing you're waiting for?
I can't explain. Go into them now. I'll be along in a minute. Five o'clock. 7 hours till midnight. 24 more until the next. 24 and 7. 31 hours left to live.
Well, what has become of my little lark?
Here she is.
of Lucy without Joe. It is.
Long show.
Direct.
That's my bedtime.
No, I haven't. I just said direct. But it's gonna be a record in finance, which is what we She's talking about. It was quite a blast. This is pretty good. They're really doing a lot of, really pretty good acting, a lot of implying on things. I would say that was being I won't tell you anymore. You're just relying on 50-year-old, more than 50-year-old guys from what I was involved with. Anyway, talk to you Well, I don't know if my desk right now, for 45 years.
One house around, some people see it, they like something.
We've been everywhere. Buckets and all the money and everything. So we didn't worry about it. All of a sudden it made sense.
Deconstructed the set myself.
It just all of a sudden kind of came together. Right before he came down, I thought, I bet you that's him. There wasn't a big one, but I put the money in the kitchen area just in case. And I thought, oh no, don't freak out when the whole thing is gone. Yeah, we'll be tomorrow.
Where can he be? The time is nearly up. I hope he hasn't. Here he is. Come in. There is no one here.
I found a note from you at home. What does it mean?
I simply must speak to you.
Indeed? But why here? Why in this house?
I couldn't see you at my place. My room has no separate entrance. Come in. We're quite alone. The servants are asleep and the Helmers are upstairs at a party.
Well, well, so the Helmers are dancing tonight, are they?
Why shouldn't they?
Well, why not?
Let's have a talk, Krogstad.
Have we two anything to talk about?
Yes, a great deal.
I shouldn't have thought so.
But then you see, you have never really understood me.
Wasn't much to understand, was there? A woman is heartless enough to break off with a man when a better match is offered. It's quite an ordinary occurrence.
You really think me heartless? Did you think it was so easy for me?
Wasn't it?
You really believe that, Krogstad?
If not, why should you have written to me as you did?
What else could I do? Since I was forced to break with you, I felt it was only right to try and kill your love for me.
So that was it? And you did this for money?
Don't forget, I had my mother and 2 little brothers to take care of. We couldn't wait for you, Krogstad. Things were so unsettled for you then.
That may be, but even so, you had no right to throw me over, not even for their sake.
Who knows? I've often wondered whether I did right or not.
When I had lost you, I felt the ground crumble beneath my feet. Look at me, I'm like a shipwrecked man clinging to a raft.
Help may be nearer than you think.
Help was here, and then you came and stood in the way.
I knew nothing about it, Krogstad. I didn't know until today that I was to replace you at the bank.
Very well, I believe you. But now that you do know, will you withdraw?
No, I do you no good by doing that.
Good or not, I'd withdraw all the same.
I've learned to be prudent, Krogstad. I've had to. The bitter necessities of life have taught me that.
Life has taught me not to believe in phrases.
And life has taught you a very wise lesson. But what about deeds? Surely you must still believe in them.
How do you mean?
You said you were like a shipwrecked man clinging to a raft.
I have good reason to say so.
Well, I'm like a shipwrecked woman clinging to a raft. I have no one to mourn for, no one to care for.
You made your choice.
I had no choice, I tell you.
What then?
Since we're both of us shipwrecked, couldn't we join forces, Krogstad?
You don't mean...
Two people on a raft have a better chance than one.
Christine.
Why do you suppose I came here to the city?
You mean you thought of me?
I can't live without work. All my life I've worked. As far back as I can remember, it's always been my one great joy. Now I'm quite alone in the world. My life is empty, aimless. There's not much joy in working for oneself. You could help me, Nils. You could give me something and someone to work for.
I can't believe this. It's a hysterical impulse, a woman's exaggerated craving for self-sacrifice.
When have you ever found me hysterical?
You'd really be willing to do this? Tell me honestly, do you quite realize what my past has been?
Yes.
And you know what people think of me?
Didn't you say you'd have been a different person if you'd been with me?
I'm sure of it.
Mightn't that still be true?
You really mean this, don't you, Christine? I can see it in your face. Are you sure you have the courage?
I need someone to care for, and your children need a mother. We two need each other, Nils. I have faith in your fundamental goodness. I'm not afraid.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. I'll make others believe in me too. I won't let you down. But I'd almost forgotten. I need...
Hush. The Tarantella, you must go.
Why? What is it?
Listen. She started her dance. As soon as she's finished, they'll be down.
Yes, I better go. There's been no need for all that. But of course, you don't know what I've done about the Helmers.
Yes, I do, Nils.
And yet you have the courage.
I know you were desperate. I understand.
I'd give anything to undo it.
You can. Your letter's still in the mailbox.
Are you sure?
Quite, but
Wait. Could that be it? You're doing all this to save your friend? You might as well be honest with me. Is that it?
I sold myself once for the sake of others, Nils. I'm not likely to do it again.
I'll ask for my letter back, unopened.
No, no.
Yes, I'll wait till Helmer comes. I'll tell him to give me back the letter. I'll say it refers to my dismissal. I'll ask him not to read it.
No, don't ask for it back.
But wasn't that actually your reason for getting me to come here?
My first moment of fear, yes. But that was 24 hours ago, and since then I've seen incredible things happening here. Helmer must know the truth. This wretched business must no longer be kept secret. It's time those two came to a thorough understanding. There's been enough deceit and subterfuge.
Very well, if you'd like to risk it. But there's something I can do, and at once.
You must go now. Make haste. The dance is over. We're not safe here another moment.
I'll wait for you downstairs.
Yes, do. And you can see me home.
Steve, I've never been so happy.
How different things will be. Someone to work for, to live for, a home to make happy. How wonderful it will be to try. Oh, I wish they'd come.
No, I don't want to come home yet. I want to go back upstairs. I don't want to come home so early.
Come, Nora, dear.
Please, Torvald. I want to go back upstairs just for another half an hour.
Not 1 minute longer. Don't you remember our arrangement?
But
Now come
Torvald-
inside before you catch a cold.
Good evening.
Christine,
Why, Mrs. Lynde, what are you doing here so late?
Do forgive me. I did so want to see Nora in her costume.
Have you been waiting for me this whole time?
Yes, I came too late to catch you before you went upstairs, and I didn't want to go away without seeing you in your costume.
And you shall see her, Mrs. Lynde, and believe me, she is quite worth looking at.
Oh, Nora, how perfectly.
Absolutely exquisite, isn't she? That's what they all said upstairs. But obstinate as a mule is my sweet little thing. Can you believe it, Mrs. Lynde? I had to drag her away by force.
You'll see. You'll be sorry, Torvald, that you didn't let me stay, even for another half an hour.
Do you hear that, Mrs. Lynde? Now listen to this. She danced her tarantella to wild applause, and deservedly so, although from an artistic point of view, her interpretation might have been a bit too realistic. But the point is this. Her dance was a great success, a phenomenal success. Now, should I have allowed her to stay on and ruin the whole effect? Certainly not. So I took my little Capri girl, my capricious little Capri girl, I might say, by the hand, a quick twirl around the room, a low curtsy on every side, and as they say in the novels, the lovely apparition vanished. An exit must be effective, Mrs. Lynde, but I simply can't get Nora to see that. Whew. It is warm in here. Why, there's no light on in here. Do excuse me, of course.
Well, I've spoken to him.
And?
Nora, you must tell your husband everything.
I knew it.
You have nothing to fear from Krogstad, but you must speak out.
I shan't.
Then the letter will.
Thank you, Christine. Now I know what I must do. Hush.
Well, Mrs. Lynde, have you finished admiring her yet?
Yes. Now I must say good night.
Oh, leaving so soon? Does this knitting belong to you?
Oh, yes, I'd almost forgotten.
So you knit, do you?
Yes.
Why don't you do embroidery instead?
Why?
Well, it's much prettier. Watch. You hold the embroidery in the left hand, so. And in the right, the needle. And you guide it through in long, graceful curves. Isn't that so?
Yes, I suppose so.
Whereas knitting can never be anything but ugly. Now watch. Arms close to the side, needles going up and down. There's something very Chinese about it. That really was splendid champagne they gave us upstairs.
Well, good night, Nora. Don't be obstinate anymore.
Well said, Mrs. Lynde.
Good night, Mr. Helmer.
Oh, good night. Good night. I'd be only too happy to, but you've such a short way to go. Good night. Good night. Thank God we got rid of her. She's a dreadful bore, that woman.
Aren't you tired, Torvald?
Not in the least.
You're not a bit sleepy?
On the contrary, I feel quite lively. But you do look ever so tired and sleepy.
Yes, I'm very tired. But I'll soon sleep now.
There, wasn't I right not to allow you to stay 1 minute longer?
Everything you do is always right, Torvald.
There's my sweet, sensible girl. By the way, did you happen to notice how gay Rake seemed to be upstairs this evening?
Was he? No, I didn't have much chance to talk to him.
Well, I didn't either, really, but it's been a long time since I've seen him in such a jolly mood. But it is good to be home with you, you glorious, fascinating creature.
Don't look at me like that, Torvald.
Why shouldn't I look at my own dearest treasure? At all this loveliness that is mine, mine alone.
You mustn't talk to me like that tonight.
You're still under the spell of the tarantella. And it makes you even more desirable. Listen, Nora. The rest of the guests are leaving. Soon the house will be still.
I hope so.
Yes, you do. Don't you, my beloved? Do you know something, Nora? Why it is, when we're out amongst a lot of people, why I scarcely speak to you, and only occasionally steal a glance from across the room? It's because I like to pretend we love each other in secret, that we're secretly engaged and no one else knows anything about it.
Yes. Yes, I know your thoughts are always round me.
Then when it's time to leave and I put that shawl around your smooth, soft young shoulders, around that beautiful neck of yours, and then it's like it's our wedding night. For the first time I'm taking you home, to be completely and utterly alone with you, in all your tremulous beauty. For all evening I have longed for you, Nora, watching you whirling and dancing in your tarantella. My pulses began to throb as though I thought I should go mad. That's why I made you leave early, why I brought you home.
Please go, Torvald. Please leave me. I don't want you like this.
Want me? Oh, you're teasing me, aren't you, Nora? Aren't I your husband?
Listen.
Who is it?
It's I. May I come in a moment?
Why does he have to bother us now? Just a minute. Well, how nice of you to look in on us now.
I heard your voice and thought I might like to come in for a minute. Oh, these dear old rooms. How cozy and happy you must be here, you two.
I was just telling Nora how happy you seem to be upstairs.
Why shouldn't I be? One should get all one can out of life. All one can. For as long as one can. That wine was excellent.
Especially the champagne.
Oh, you noticed that, did you? It's incredible how much I managed to get down.
Yes, Torvald managed to drink a lot of it too.
Oh,
It always puts him in such a jolly mood.
well, shouldn't one have a jolly night after a well-spent day?
Well spent. I'm afraid mine wasn't much to boast of.
Oh, but mine was, you see.
Did you by chance make a scientific investigation, Dr. Wright?
Listen to Nora. Speaking of scientific investigations.
Precisely.
And am I to congratulate you on the result?
By all means.
It was good then.
Best possible for both doctor and patient. Certainty.
Certainly.
Absolute certainty. Wasn't I right to spend a jolly evening after that?
You were quite right, Dr. Wright.
I quite agree, provided you don't have to pay for it tomorrow.
You don't get anything for nothing in this life.
You like masquerade parties, don't you, Dr. Wright?
Oh, very much when there are plenty of amusing disguises.
Listen to her, thinking of the next party already.
And what shall we two be at our next masquerade?
We two. I'll tell you. You must be a precious talisman.
How on earth would you dress that?
It's easy. She'd only have to be herself.
Charmingly put. But What about you? Have you given any thought to what you would be?
Certainly.
Well,
At the next masquerade party, I shall be invisible.
that's a funny notion.
There's a black cloak. You've heard of the invisible cloak, haven't you? You simply have to wrap it around you. No one can see you anymore.
Quite true.
But I almost forgot what I came here for. Would you give me a cigar, Elmer? One of the dark Havanas.
Of course,
Thanks.
with pleasure.
Let me give you a light.
I thank you. Now, I'll say goodbye.
Oh, goodbye, goodbye, old fellow.
Sleep well, Dr. Wright.
Thanks for the wish.
Wish me the same.
You. Very well, since you asked. Sleep well. Thanks for the light.
He's had a lot to drink.
I dare say.
I'm going to empty the mailbox. It's so full they won't fit the paper in the morning.
Oh, you're not going to work this evening?
Oh, no, you know I'm not. Why, what's this? Someone has been at the lock.
The lock?
Yes, I wouldn't have thought the maids would. Well, here's a hairpin. It's one of yours, Nora.
It must have been one of the children.
Well, you'll have to stop them doing that. Well, there, I got it at last. Pauline, put the lamp out in the hall, will you? See how they piled up? But, what's this?
The letter. No, Torvald.
2 visiting cards from Rank.
From Dr. Wright.
Yes, Dr. Rank. Physician. They were right on top. He must have dropped them in just as he left.
Is there anything on them?
There's a black cross above his name. Look. What a gruesome thought. As if he were announcing his own death.
And so he is.
What do you know about it? Has he said something?
Yes, these cards mean that he said goodbye to us for good. Now he'll lock himself in his room to die.
Oh, my poor friend. I always knew he hadn't long to live, but never thought it would be so soon. And to lock himself away like a wounded animal.
When the time comes, it's best to go alone, don't you think, Torvald?
He becomes such a part of us. I can't imagine him having gone for good. All his loneliness and sorrow, it was like a dark, cloudy background to our lives. Made the sunshine of our happiness seem even brighter. Well, I suppose it is for the best. For him at any rate. And perhaps for us too, Nora. For now we are ever so much more dependent upon each other. Oh, Nora, darling, I can't seem to hold you close enough. You know something, Nora? Sometimes I wish you were in some grave danger, so I could risk my life, my body, my soul, everything. Everything for your sake, Nora.
Now, Torvald, you must go and read your letters.
Not tonight. I want to be with you, my beloved.
With the thought of your dying friend.
Yes. I suppose you're right. It's been quite a shock to both of us. A dark shadow has been cast between us. Thoughts of death and decay. We must try to cast them off, but until then, we'll stay apart.
Torvald. Good night. Good night.
Good night. Okay, there. Now, sleep well, my own precious little songbird.
I'll never see him again. I'll never see the children either. I'll never see them either. Oh, the thought of that black, icy water, that fathomless, oh, if only it were over already. He has it now. He's reading it. Not yet. Not yet, Torvald. Goodbye. Goodbye to you and the children.
Cora, what's the meaning of this? Do you know what's in this letter?
Yes, yes, let me go, Torvald.
Where
Let me
are
out.
you going?
Don't try to save me, Torvald.
It's impossible. It's horrible. It can't be true.
Yes, it's true. I've loved you more than all of the world.
Do you know what you've done?
Torvald, don't try to save me. Let me out.
Stop
I
all
won't have
this
you
play
suffer
acting.
for it. I won't have you
sit
take the blame.
here and give an account for what you've done. Do you understand what you've done to me? Answer me. Do you understand it?
I think I'm beginning to understand for the first time.
What an awakening! After 8 years to discover that you who have been my pride and joy are nothing more than a hypocrite! A liar! Worse than that, a criminal! I should have known what to expect. I should have foreseen it! You inherited all of your father's lack of principle! Don't! All your father's lack of principle. No sense of religion! No moral code! No sense of duty! I did this for your sake. This is my punishment for shielding him. This is my reward.
I see.
You've destroyed my happiness. Ruined my whole future. I'm completely under the power of this scoundrel. He shall force me to do whatever he wants. Order me about at will, demand whatever he chooses, and I shan't be able to open my mouth. My whole entire career is to be ruined. All because of a lawless, unprincipled woman!
And if I were no longer alive, then you'd be free?
Oh, yes. You're full of histrionics. Your father was exactly the same. Even if you weren't alive, what good would that do me? Absolutely none. He published the story all the same. People would suspect me of collusion. Yes, they'd say I was behind it all, that I just prompted you to do it. And to think I have you to thank for all of this. You who have done nothing but pamper and spoil since the day of our marriage. Now do you realize what what you've done to me?
Yes.
Oh, it's all so impossible. I can't grasp it. Still, we must try to come to some agreement. Let's take off that shawl. Take it off, I say. Now we must find a way to appease him. The matter must be hushed up at any cost. As far as you and I are concerned, there will be no change in our way of life. In the eyes of the world, I mean. You'll continue to live here, but I shan't allow you near the children. I shan't dare trust them to you again. I have to say this to the woman I've loved so tenderly. But no, there can be no more feelings of happiness between us. But we will save what we can from the ruins. We will save our appearances at least. Who could that be at this hour? You don't suppose that he would... Nora, hide yourself. Say that you are ill.
It's a letter from Mrs. Helmer.
I'll take it. It's from him. I shan't give it to you. I'll read it myself.
Very well.
This very well could be the end for both of us. Still, I must know. Nora, I can't believe it. Let's read it again. But it's true. Nora, it's true. I'm saved. I'm saved.
What about me?
Yes, you too, of course. Look, he's sent back your note. He says he's sorry for what he's done and apologizes for it. That due to some happy turn of events, what difference does it make what it says? We're saved, Nora. No one can harm you now. Let's just get rid of this. No. I won't look at it any longer. We'll just get rid of it. Just get rid of it and pretend it was all just a horrible dream. There. It's all settled. He said in the letter that you've known since Christmas Eve. You must have had 3 dreadful days.
Yes. It was very hard.
Oh, how you must have suffered. And you saw no way out. But no, we'll just forget the whole gruesome business. We'll just thank God and repeat again and again because it's over, Nora. No one can harm you. Oh, dear Nora, why do you look so grim? You don't seem to understand it. It's over. No one can harm you. Oh, I see, Nora. But you mustn't worry about that because I forgive you. You did what you did because you love me. I see that now.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, you love me as a wife should love her husband. That's the way it should be. You didn't know what you were doing. You weren't able to judge how wrong it was. Don't think this makes you any less dear to me. You just lean on me now. Let me guide you and advise you. I'm not a man for nothing. And there is something so endearing about a woman's helplessness. And Nora, do try to forget those harsh words I said just now. I was frantic. My whole world seemed to be falling about my ears, but you must understand, I forgive you. Nora, I forgive you everything.
Thank you for your forgiveness, Torvald.
No, where are you going? Why do you have to go in there?
I want to get out of these fancy dress clothes.
Oh, yes, do. Do, my darling. And do try to calm down. Get back to normal. You can rest in the shelter of my wings. They'll protect you, Nora. Nora, soon your beating heart will grow calm again. Tomorrow all of this will appear in quite a different light. You'll see. Oh, how lovely our home is, Nora. Nora, you'll be sheltered here. Why, tomorrow you won't have to keep wondering if I've forgiven you, because you'll be able to sense it. And Nora, you don't think I could ever so much as drive you away, or so much as reproach you for anything. When a man forgives his wife wholeheartedly, as I have you, it fills him with such tenderness and peace. It's as if he's brought her back to life again. Yes, she seems to belong to him in a double sense. Why, she's more than a wife. She becomes like a child as well. That's how it will be with us, Nora. My own helpless, bewildered little thing. Just open your heart to me. Let me guide you. Let me be both will and conscious to you. What's this? I thought you were going to bed. You've changed your dress.
Yes, I've changed my dress.
What for at this hour?
I shan't sleep tonight. It's not so very late. Sit down, Torvald. We have a lot to talk about.
Nora, what does this mean? Why that stern expression?
Sit down. This will take some time. I have a lot to say to you.
You're frightening me, Nora. I don't understand.
That's just it. You don't understand me. And I have never understood you either until tonight. Now, let me talk. This is to be a final settlement, Torvald.
How do you mean?
Doesn't anything special strike you as we sit here tonight?
I don't think so. Why?
It doesn't occur to you, does it, that though we've been married for 8 years, you and I, we've never sat down, man and wife, for a serious talk.
What do you mean by serious?
In 8 whole years, no longer, ever since the first day that we've met, we've never so much as exchanged one serious word about serious things.
Nora, why must I perpetually burden you with all my cares and problems? How can you ever possibly help me to solve them?
I'm not talking about cares and problems. I'm simply saying we've never sat down seriously and tried to get to the bottom of anything.
But you mustn't concern yourself with serious thoughts.
That's just it. You've never understood me. A great injustice has been done to me, Torvald. First by Father, and then by you.
That's incredible. No two people on earth could have loved you more than we have.
You never loved me. You just thought it was fun to be in love with me.
This is fantastic.
Perhaps, but it's true all the same. when I was still at home. I used to listen to Father airing his opinions, and they became my opinions. Or if I didn't happen to agree, I kept it to myself. He would have been displeased otherwise. He used to call me his doll baby and played with me as I played with my dolls. And then I came to live in your house.
What an expression to use about our marriage.
I mean, from Father's hands I've passed into yours. You arranged everything to suit your tastes, and they became my tastes. Or at least I pretended. I'm not sure which. Perhaps a little of both. When I look back on it all now, Torvald, it seems I've lived here like a beggar, from hand to mouth. I lived by performing tricks for you, Torvald, but that's the way that you wanted it. You and Father have done me a great wrong. You've prevented me from becoming a real person.
How can you be so unreasonable? Ungrateful. Haven't you been happy here?
No, never. I thought that I was, but I wasn't really.
Not happy.
No, only married. You've never been anything but kind to me, Torvald, but our home has never been anything but a playroom. I've been your doll wife, just as at home I was Papa's doll child, and the children in turn have been my dolls. I thought it was fun when you played games with me, just as they thought it was fun when I played games with them. And that has been our marriage, Torvald.
There may be a grain of truth in what you say, though it is highly distorted and exaggerated. But things will be different now, Nora. Playtime is over. Tomorrow lessons begin.
Whose lessons? Mine or the children's?
Both, if you wish it, Nora.
I'm afraid you're not the man to teach me to be a real wife to you, Torvald.
How can you say that?
And I'm certainly not fit to teach the children.
Nora.
Didn't you just tell me a moment ago that you didn't dare trust them to me?
That was in the excitement of the moment. You mustn't take it so seriously.
But you were quite right, Torvald. That job is beyond me. There's another that I must do first. I must try and educate myself. I'm afraid you could never help me with that. I must do it quite alone. So you see, that's why I'm going to leave you.
What did you say?
I shall never get to know myself or never face reality unless I stand alone. So I'm going to leave you.
Nora?
I shall leave at once. I'm sure that Christine will let me stay with her this evening.
Nora, this is madness. I shan't allow you to go. I shall forbid it.
You no longer have the power to forbid me anything. I'll only take things that are mine with me. I'll never accept anything from you again.
Have you lost your senses?
Tomorrow I shall go home. To what was my home anyway. I expect it'll be easier there for me to find something to do.
You're speaking like a silly child.
That's just why I must educate myself.
To leave your home, your husband, and your children? What do you suppose people will say to that?
It doesn't matter. This is something I must do.
Don't you realize you'd be betraying your most sacred duty?
And what do you consider that to be?
Your duty as a wife and a mother. Surely I don't have to tell you that.
There's another duty just as sacred.
Nonsense. What could that be?
My duty towards myself.
Remember, before all else, you are a wife and a mother.
I don't believe that anymore. I believe that before all else, I'm a person just as you are. Or at least I should try to become one. I know that most people would agree with you, Torvald, and that's what they say in books. But I can no longer be satisfied with what most people say. or what they write in books. I must try and think things out for myself and get clear on them.
Surely your position in your home is clear enough. Have you no sense of religion? Isn't that an infallible guide to you?
But don't you see, Torvald? I don't really know what religion is.
How can you say that?
Well, I know what Pastor Hansen told me when I was confirmed. He taught me what he thought religion was. He said it was this or that. When I get away by myself, I shall have to think on that too. Try and decide whether or not what he taught me was right, or whether it's right for me at least.
What an incredible way for a young woman to speak. All right, if religion means nothing to you, then I'll appeal to your conscience. Surely you have some sense of ethics. Well, answer me, or have you not?
It's hard for me to answer you, Torvald. I'm not really sure. All of these things bewilder me. But I do know one thing. I think quite differently than you on them. I've discovered that the law, for example, is quite different from what I had imagined, but I can't believe that it's right. It seems it's criminal for a woman to try and spare her sick, dying father, or to save her husband's life. I can't agree with that.
You speak like an ignorant child. You have no understanding of the society in which we live.
That's just why I must educate myself.
You're
I
ill.
want to know which of us is right, society or I.
You're ill, Nora. You have a fever. You are quite beside yourself.
I've never been so sure and so clear-headed as I am tonight.
Sure and clear-headed enough to leave your husband and your children?
Yes.
And there's only one other reasonable explanation.
What?
You don't love me anymore.
No, that's just it.
Nora, how can you?
It makes me so sad, Torvald, for you've always been so kind to me. But I can't help it. I don't love you anymore. And
You feel sure and clear-headed about this too?
yes, utterly sure. And that's why I can't stay here any longer.
Can you tell me how I lost your love?
Yes? It was tonight, when the wonderful thing didn't happen. That's when I knew you weren't the man I always thought you were.
I don't understand.
For 8 years, I've waited patiently. I knew such things didn't happen every day. And then, when this trouble came to me, I thought, now the wonderful thing will happen. All the while that Krogstad's letter was in the box, I never thought for a moment that you'd consent to his demands. I felt certain that you would defy him, that you'd tell him to publish the thing to all the world, and that then...
You thought I would let my wife be publicly dishonored and disgraced?
No. What I thought was that you would take the blame upon yourself.
Nora.
I know. You think I never would have accepted such a sacrifice, and I wouldn't. But my word would have been nothing compared to yours. That was the wonderful thing I hoped for, Torvald. Hoped for with such terror. And it was to prevent that I chose to kill myself.
I would gladly work for you. Day and night go through suffering and want, Nora, but one doesn't sacrifice one's honor for love's sake.
Millions of women have done so.
You speak like an ignorant child.
Perhaps. But you neither speak nor act like the man that I want to share my life with? When you'd recovered from your fright, and you never thought of me, only yourself, when there was nothing more to fear, you acted like none of this had happened. I was your little lark again, your little doll, whom you'd have to guard more carefully than ever because she was so weak and frail. It was in that moment it suddenly dawned on me. I spent the last 8 years of my life with a stranger, and I've borne him 3 children. I can't bear to think about it. I could tear myself to pieces.
I see. Nora, I understand. There is suddenly a great distance between us. But is there no way to bridge it?
Feeling as I do now, there's no way I could be a wife to you.
But if I were to change, do you think I'm capable of that?
Perhaps. When you no longer have your doll to play with.
But I can't lose you, Nora. Nora, I can't endure the thought.
All the more reason that it should happen.
Not tonight, Nora. Or wait till tomorrow.
I can't spend another night in a strange man's house.
We could go on living here together as brother and sister, or friends if you like.
You know that would never last. Goodbye. I won't go in to see the children. What use can I be to them now, being what I am?
But surely someday, Nora.
How do I know? How do I know what sort of person I'll become?
You're my wife, Nora, now and always.
Listen to me, Torvald. I've always heard that when a wife deliberately leaves her husband, as I'm leaving you, that he is legally freed from all responsibility towards her. At any rate, I now release you from all responsibility. You shouldn't feel yourself bound, any more than I will. There must be complete freedom on both sides. Here's your ring. Now, give me mine.
That too?
That too.
Here it is.
So, it's all over now. Here are the keys. The servants know how to take care of the house better than I do. I'll ask Christine to come by tomorrow after I've left town. There are a few things from home that I brought, and I'll have her pack them up and send them on to me.
You mean it's over, Nora? Utterly and truly over? You'll never think of me again?
I expect I shall think of you often. Of you. And the children. And this house.
May I write to you?
No, please don't.
Please let me send you some.
Nothing.
You let me help you, Nora.
No, I say. I can't accept anything from strangers.
Must I always be a stranger to you?
Yes. unless it were to happen, the most wonderful thing of all,
What?
unless we both could change so that, oh, Torvald, I no longer believe in miracles, you see?
Tell me, Nora. Let me believe. Unless we both could change so that
our life together might truly be a marriage. Goodbye.
Nora. Nora! She's gone. How empty it all feels. The most wonderful thing of all.